Hello and welcome to our Partnerships Experience 2021 Roundtable Panel Discussion on B2B partnerships titled, All You Need Is Trust, Creating Brand-to-Brand Relationships Based on Authenticity and Transparency. I'm joined today by some very accomplished colleagues representing some top brands. And wanted to first kick off with some quick introductions. I'm Dave Yovanno, CEO of Impact, your panel moderator today. And maybe we can start with you, Kate, for just a quick introduction to you, your company, and your role.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great to be here. So hi, I'm Kate Marsden. I'm the partnership marketing lead here at Canva. So Canva is a global visual communications platform which empowers the world to design, from presentations for teams to infographics to personalized printable products and so forth. So really good to be here and on the panel today.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Next, I'd like to welcome Erin from Disney. If you wouldn't mind, just a quick intro to you, your company, and your role as well, Erin.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. Erin Weigum. I am a director on the growth marketing team at Disney Streaming, working on subscriber acquisition initiatives across all of our streaming services, ESPN+, Disney+, Star Plus, globally. I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. And then finally, James from HubSpot. Can you share a quick intro as well?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm James. I'm at HubSpot. I've been at HubSpot for about 6 years. HubSpot is a CRM platform for scaling companies. We have software across marketing, sales, customer service, and I look after our partnerships team. So we have a go-to-market partnerships team. We have a platform partnerships team, which is really for partners who integrate with HubSpot. And then we have a strategic partner team where it's people who integrate with HubSpot or are like core to our product in other ways.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, and welcome again. I thought maybe we could just frame the discussion to start with. We put this title together, brand to brand types of partnerships, but thought we could hear from you guys each on what you think that means. We talk about brand to brand partnerships, or some people call them business to business partnerships. Let's maybe just collectively agree to call them B2B partnerships, but just kind of interested to hear from you on how you think about those and how they're maybe different. And a couple of examples we'll dive into just so the audience can wrap their heads around this topic. So just to start, how would you talk about or describe B2B partnerships? What are those?
I can jump in. Yeah, so I think for Canva, as I touched on, Canva's mission is to empower the world to design and publish anywhere. So I think the way that we've approached partnerships and B2B partnerships is really with that mission at its core. So ways that we can have our design tool at the very place where customers want to design has really informed the direction we take with partnerships. So I think partnerships is such a broad term. There's many different types. There's integration partnerships, there's brand partnerships, there's product and so forth. So I think that for us, it's ultimately about the end customer, what value it's driving for them, and also how partnerships through the B2B in the B2B space is just another channel to help the company and Canva achieve our goals.
So maybe just to pull on that thread for a minute, Kate, does it typically include some level of integration, the way that you define B2B partnerships with Canva?
It can, and that's certainly where our partnership journey began at Canva, and James and I can unpack our partnership journey together between Canva and HubSpot. But it's really evolving at Canva to be kind of, I think, if you think of the full funnel of what a partnership with a business could be. So upper funnel brand partnerships, all about brand building, brand affinity, right through to kind of the lower funnel where, yeah, product adoption and integration is at its core, and when you can really start to measure some conversion metrics. So I think it can be that full spectrum, and certainly that's the way we look at it at Canva.
Excellent. And Erin, how about at Disney? How do you think about B2B partnerships specifically?
Similar but different. For us, it definitely also falls into a multifaceted, non-traditional sort of landscape where it can vary all the way up to brand building and kind of deeper, longer-term enterprise sort of relationships that touch multiple elements of the Walt Disney Company's business. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it can be partnerships with brands that do get a little bit more transactional or direct response in nature, and everything in between. For us, at the end of the day, we're still maniacally focused on subscriber growth. So we're always looking to partner with brands that can A, drive that acquisition growth and actually secure signups for the services, but B, bring enough scale to move the needle for a business the size of Disney's.
Excellent. I have a feeling once we get to James, we'll dive into maybe an example as well, possibly starting with Canva. But Erin, just to kind of continue on that theme, might be helpful to give an example or two of a B2B type of partnership that you're working with at Disney.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give two examples. One is a nascent partnership that we're working through in real time now. So if you see any marketing live on their website or in stores, don't hesitate to screenshot it, send it my way, and let me know what you think of it. But we're working with Target, the retail store, and this is part of a multifaceted full funnel partnership. So we're plugging into it via Impact for a lot of the digital and lower funnel acquisition oriented efforts, but that is but one spoke of a bigger enterprise relationship and deal between the Walt Disney Company and Target, where we'll also appear in stores and do kind of more full funnel branding stuff. And then another good example of a partnership that we've been able to facilitate in this space is in the travel industry, where with partners like TripAdvisor and Hilton, and we've been able to help them actually cultivate new revenue streams for their customers during this kind of paucity of traveling that we're experiencing with COVID. So a very win-win relationship for both of us, where they can stay relevant with their customers while folks aren't traveling, and we can drive new signups for our service.
Excellent. Yeah, and I love that example of Disney and Target because, and we'll unpack that maybe a little bit more in a few minutes, but it really just shows how dynamic this ecosystem can be, because Target also has a very vibrant partnership program themselves on the Impact platform, where they're acquiring new customers, existing customer sales from their own partnerships. But here in this case, I think what you're referring to is where they are serving as a partner to drive new subscriber growth to Disney Plus, which is fascinating. So on one end, they're doing their own customer acquisition, but then on the other end, they're referring business to someone else, another business like Disney, which is pretty fascinating.
Exactly. It's kind of a role reversal. I think Disney historically has been a publisher, right? As like a media company in varying capacities, and now kind of a bit of a role reversal, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I love this. This is a true ecosystem at play here, which I love. Yeah. And then James, maybe on the HubSpot side, how do you think about B2B partnerships? What are those exactly? And maybe could you dive into an example there?
Yeah, so I think similar to Kate, we always start with like, how does this add customer value? And there's really two ways that we think about that as it relates to partnerships. There's pure brand partnerships, where you're trying to be associated with a brand that's important to your customers. And so in our instance, we do a bit with Sandler Training that do a lot around sales training. We have a CRM platform that a lot of salespeople spend all day in. The training element is important there, and they've got a great reputation in that space. And so we have like a brand partnership there. But a lot of our partnerships, I'd say the majority, are where we have a product in our CRM platform, and then there's tangential products that our customers use. And we want to find ways to make the experience of using both easier. So we have, I think it's around 850 different software platforms integrated with HubSpot. And that's to help make customers' lives easier in these different areas. And one which we have been working on with Kate for quite a while was integrating with Canva. So HubSpot traditionally was an all-in-one marketing solution. So you could have your website with us, do all your social media posting, paid media, email marketing, automations, everything like that. And when you think about the role of a digital media marketer, there's really two things they need to do. They need to create content and assets, and they need to distribute those assets. And they distribute them through all their own properties, and then they may do some sponsorships outside that. And what we saw with Canva was a lot of our customers were going to them for the creation of those assets, and then they were coming to us to actually distribute those assets on the web. And their process used to be that they'd have to go to Canva, design their assets, download them, come to HubSpot, upload them, go to the tool they want to use, find the asset, and then publish it. With the Canva button, what we were able to do was we were able to integrate it anywhere that you were going to be adding an image. So whether it's an email or website, you know, everywhere where you use visual communications, there's now a design with Canva button. And so you go to the tool you want to use, you just press design with Canva, make your design and hit publish. And so we reduced 8 steps for a customer to 3. And because of that, have seen a lot of adoption and satisfaction with both platforms. And we don't have technically a commercial outcome from this. It was purely from the standpoint of making customers' lives easier. With that, there's obviously the benefit that if you're more easy to use, you've got higher NPS as a platform, typically those customers stay around longer. And if you're a subscription business, that is meaningful. That's just a nice output of kind of doing the right thing by the customer. It's not the primary driver of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess just if
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, please, Kate, go ahead.
If I may,
so many threads to pull on there.
So
I
many.
want you to jump in. Go ahead.
Well, I guess just one thread to pull on there and to add to what James has shared. So just in terms of that friction that marketers face between going from multiple platforms, you know, it's been really exciting to see how the response, I suppose, from customers on that integration. So since we've been live with HubSpot, we've seen over 150,000 designs published using Canva within the HubSpot platform. So if you actually just unpack that for a moment, that's 150,000 times that a marketer hasn't had to bounce from platform to platform, downloading content and uploading and publishing. So I think, you know, in the climate that we have, and it's not going away, that the pressure of producing and publishing a lot of content, if we can reduce that friction and make that a seamless workflow for customers, then that's a big win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the themes that I'm picking up on is improving the consumer experience. Another theme is around customer acquisition and driving revenue. Well, you know, and so Kate, I heard you talk about the consumer experience. James, I heard you talk about the consumer experience. What is the main driver of these types of partnerships at each of your organizations? I know, Erin, it seemed like maybe the focus was on customer acquisition. You know, maybe Kate, to start with you, what has been the main driver of these B2B types of partnerships inside of Canva?
Yeah, so I guess using the HubSpot one, and James was spot on when it's ultimately looking at what the customer outcome is and the problems that we're trying to solve. But I guess for Canva as well, it's a way that we can increase awareness and understanding of the full breadth and depth that our platform can provide people. And of course, when they're seeing the Canva button on third-party websites, then there is that longer term acquisition play definitely for Canva to see that, you know, that this platform has made a workflow easier, so that there is that longer term adoption of new customers through that. But I think as well, it really depends on what type of B2B partnership we're looking at. So if touching on again of a brand type partnership, acquisition is certainly a goal, but if it's top of the funnel, then we're more talking about awareness and brand building type metrics and measurements of success, rather than any immediate impact in conversions. And so I think it's important to distinguish what partnership type it is that we're talking about, and then naturally kind of the measurement of that will fall underneath.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a good combination of improving the user experience, but also you know, closely tracking the customer acquisition, the ROI, you know, the business benefit of it as well, but mostly playing that medium to long game, if you will. And then Erin, it seemed like you were maybe more focused on subscriber growth, revenue growth? How do you think about the main driver of these types of partnerships?
Yeah, I think for Disney, we want it all. So it has to not only fit from a brand perspective and be customer centric, but we also are responsible for growth at the end of the day. So when we think through all of that, it ends up being a pretty complex exercise to find the right sort of partners that adhere to kind of all of those requirements. But growth at the end of the day, provided it's plugging in appropriately at the brand level, and if it's utilitarian to the end user, the customer, the guest is what we would call them at Disney.
Mm-hmm. And so, James, it can't all just be for the purity of the consumer experience. Certainly, there's got to be some business benefit to these integrations. What is that driver for you?
Yeah, so I think similar to Erin, the driver is all the things. I think this is one of those nice instances where incentives just align very well with the customer. Like us doing a really good job of making their lives easier will mean they will stay with HubSpot longer and they'll talk about HubSpot to their friends. And we see very real benefits. You know, across our platform, I think the average person has 5 other apps integrated. As people integrate more other applications with HubSpot, their retention, their revenue retention, you know, we've got graphs internally, it goes up and to the right. And the more we can make that experience filled with great experiences and reduced friction, the more people will do it and the more they will stay on HubSpot for a longer amount of time. So it's definitely not purely altruistic. It's just a beautiful alignment of making the customer happy means they stay around longer. If they stay around longer, they pay you for longer, and that's a good business outcome. And we do measure revenue retention across you know, integrations, and you can look it up by integration internally and things like that. And brand equity is the one that's like actually a bit harder to measure. I think like brand activities forever have been hard to measure, but I think the way we measure it internally is we actually have a list of brands that we think there's about 60 of them that it's like, oh, association with this is positive for HubSpot because that brand is essentially talking to the type of persona that we want to be talking to. And so the more we're seen in the same light as them, the more positive it is for HubSpot. And the only other thing I'd say is that for a lot of our partnerships, there is, I would say 90% of them, there is an integration with HubSpot, and it's almost a like foundational layer. Like in the dream state, there's an integration with HubSpot that makes the user experience of HubSpot plus that other company's product better as a result. And then on top of that, if you can do go-to-market activities, essentially highlighting the integration, showing off why it's beneficial and getting brand equity for both partners, that's a really positive thing. And it's often, again, something that we're lucky that just aligns. Like typically, if a customer is like, oh, we really want an integration with company X, it's because they use both products already. And so adding that integration, we know there's a demand that makes sense, like the personas are already using both products. So there's value in doing that. And then doing marketing with those companies on top of the integration is helping you raise awareness of that value proposition to the other company's customers who aren't currently integrated with you. And so it just lines up quite well. Like, on the face of it,
I consider them like these are like no-brainer business alliances in my mind, right? You know, people, need to publish content in the HubSpot workflow. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer that you would partner with Canva, tap into their publishing tools and get content created and published faster. Erin, you mentioned, I think you mentioned some of the Disney resort brands, for example, and alliances with travel partners, I'm assuming is kind of what you're referring to, right? So if somebody's traveling to a resort, an alliance with a travel partner just makes sense. So why not come together with some businesses that just make sense to create a better consumer experience that's going to elevate both brands, right? It's going to improve, conversion results most likely and drive revenue for both. But because of the consumer experience, why not do it? Is that more or less how you guys think about it as well?
I think that yeah. And just doubling down on that travel example, it starts with, can start from a variety of directions, but one capacity in which that started was the seedling idea of empowering folks to stream offline and download stuff ahead of trips. And so, while they're at the airport or before they're losing Wi-Fi connectivity, going a long train ride, a long car trip, whatever it is, that was kind of the impetus for it. And then to your point, able to sort of tap into a lot of existing relationships across the Walt Disney Company in that industry.
Okay, so tapping on the altruistic theme, I have to assume that there is some real business value to what we're doing, and to the extent that you guys are comfortable sharing any stats or details or metrics, even in wide ranges in terms of the overall impact of these types of partnerships to your organization. I guess the main question is, can B2B types of partnerships really move the needle for customer acquisition or revenue at your organizations? Are they competitive with other major customer acquisition channels like search or display, for example? What can you share in terms of the real business contribution beyond just the better consumer experience? Kate, how about yourself at Canva?
Yeah, look, I think as far as channels go, they're complementary, certainly not competitive. I think if we look at partnerships as just another channel or a lever that we can pull in order to achieve whatever company objectives we have, I think that's the better way to look at it than rather it's competing with other key channels that an organization has. I think in terms of more broadly speaking, measurement of outcome and some of the key metrics that we would look at. Obviously, as a design platform, we would look at the amount of designs created, the regularity of our users coming on through our partnerships, through our integrations. So monthly active users, how often they're staying on the platform, how often they're coming back. So the whole stickiness piece, which James has been touching on, acquisition being a key one as well. But one thing that I think you mentioned, Dave, earlier was this full ecosystem of opportunity. So rather than approaching a partnership is almost like a one-dimensional opportunity that's solving one specific business or customer problem, well, what is that full ecosystem of opportunities with a partnership? So it can be from both B2B, B2C, it can have product integration opportunities, content opportunities, engagement with potential lead generation and so forth. So I think really unpacking in that scoping phase of a partnership then starts to look at, okay, well, if this is what we're both going after, well, what are the metrics that we're going to really measure success against? And probably to limit those metrics, I think that if we're trying to achieve too much within a partnership, it might not be set up for complete success, but so having that razor sharp clarity on what the key objectives are and making sure that we've got the metrics and the analysts who are a key part of any partnership to make sure that they're involved as well to measure the all important success and impact, I suppose.
Okay, and James, are you measuring the contribution of these types of partnerships to revenue growth ultimately?
Yeah, so there's really three different ways. I mean, there's a million different ways they get measured, but there's three core ways that we would think about it. There's really like number of installs, like what is the adoption of the integration with the partner that we have. So just purely how many people are adopting it. And then we have, we have like our own app store, and there's a review section, and there's also, so we take those reviews very seriously, like what's the star review, what are the review comments like, what's that kind of qualitative feedback. We also survey our customers a lot, and so get a sense of that. And then there's obviously the revenue retention element as well. And I think we look at that on an individual integration basis and then integrations as a whole. And what we notice is like, so HubSpot, we're a CRM platform and we have a lot of tools that we've built into HubSpot. And then, you know, the average customer at HubSpot uses 60 other software tools. And so it's like, how can we make the experience of not only using HubSpot a joy, but using HubSpot as your source of truth, plus whatever those 60 other applications are, a delightful experience. And as we do that, we see revenue retention go up because those customers stay with HubSpot for longer because it is a very positive experience for them.
That's worth underscoring. I'm going to put a spotlight on that for the audience in case it wasn't clearly understood. What I took away from what you just said, which I think is super important, is tracking and understanding usage metrics, usage as a proxy to value, essentially, and not so much thinking of it as customer acquisition or revenue growth, but also an enhancement to retention metrics, right? So if I create a better consumer experience inside my platform through a business partnership, I can reduce my logo churn or improve my my net or gross dollar retention, which I think is super important to keep in mind here. And then Erin,
especially, if you're a software business with a big install base of customers, like we have over 100,000 customers, over $1 billion of install base revenue. And so if we can increase the retention of those customers, it really, if you look at any growth chart of a company, as you get to those large sizes, retention plays a more and more important part in your ability to grow at a larger install base. And so it's very powerful from a growth point of view.
Yeah, that's incredible insight. Erin, how do you think about that at Disney, just in terms of, can this really move the needle for business value? Thinking more holistically now, considering the retention piece.
Yeah, we do think of the retention piece. I think we're still fairly nascent in the overall lifespan of the products that my team and I are responsible for marketing. So we're still very much in that nearer term, I don't want to say myopic. We have some long-term goals in mind, but the immediate objective is that subscriber acquisition and that near-term growth with service launches, program launches, region launches, et cetera. We do think there is a lot of unmeasured value that is occurring here, be it in terms of earlier on in the acquisition funnel in, say, the consideration or product awareness or programming and content awareness sort of phases of that consumer journey, as well as, to everyone's point here, a knock-on effect when it comes to customer retention and ensuring that folks stick with the services or even get cross-sold into more than one service. So, if someone's on Disney Plus, how do we also get them subscribed to Hulu? How do we get them subscribed to ESPN Plus? And partners are very much a vehicle we have top of mind for all of the above. And acquisitions maybe are kind of near-term play, but we know a lot of these relationships and partnerships that we're forging will have a role to play as our business too matures.
Excellent. So I think we've established up to this point that B2B partnerships can be a pretty valuable competitive weapon, if you will, for any business. We've touched on its ability to drive revenue growth, its ability to improve retention metrics within a business, also improve the consumer experience, raising the brand equity value for yourself and other businesses that you're aligned with in a smart way. So it's a pretty powerful set of capabilities here in front of you. Who does this function within your organizations roll up into? This is a pretty dynamic opportunity here for any business. Who do you guys report into? What team are you part of inside your organizations?
Yeah, so I guess at Canva, this space is really evolving, and we've positioned the partnership team to sit within the B2B team, which obviously makes a lot of sense given what we've really unpacked today. And we ladder up to the marketing engagement team. So I guess the quick answer to your question is we fall within the broader marketing remit. But I think it's important to unpack looking at the partnership lifecycle, all the different skill sets in the organization it takes to bring a partnership to life. And so that's far reaching. I think that if anyone's ever done a whiteboard session to really map all of those resources that are involved, whether it's from a responsibility or more of a consultative or an informed position, right through from scoping a partnership to reporting on its impact, it's the resources and so forth that are involved is very far reaching into the organization and does fall outside, certainly at Canva, the marketing remit. And so I think an important thing to note to the audience watching is to be really mindful of the fact that whilst partnerships can have a huge positive impact on driving company goals, they can often be a heavy lift and involve a lot of resources throughout or to bring them to life. So I think it's an important consideration when embarking on partnerships and where it sits within an organization.
Excellent. And James, how about within HubSpot? Where does the B2B partnerships function kind of roll up into?
Yeah, so we have 3 distinct groups that work on partnerships. So we have the BD function, we have the product function, and then we have the marketing function. They each roll into their respective, like, I guess you could call it like departments. So marketing rolls into marketing, BD rolls into strategy, and then product rolls into product. It's really interesting chatting to different people working on partnerships. What's the optimal org structure? No one has ever told me that we have it nailed. There's always like tension and problems, and it's tricky. You know, like a lot of companies, I feel very bad for all people in partnership or BD roles because they're told, hey, go and do this amazing partnership. It's like, cool, what team do I have? It's like, oh, it's just you. Like, not only do they have to convince the partner to do everything, they then have to convince all those internal teams who have their own idea of what they're going to work on that they should be working on this partnership. So it's a dual BD role. It's external and it's internal a lot of the time. The way we try to get around that is we try to have very tight alignment between those teams. Like, even though our teams in marketing technically report into marketing, we work, I would say, closer with the BD teams and their goals to make sure that we essentially have the same goals and that we're pushing towards the same outcome. And I would say that more dictates what we work on than marketing-led goals. We obviously, it's similar to, you know, if you make the customer experience better, you see better revenue retention. It's just very good alignment. We try to get that alignment and the goal setting process with those other teams from different departments. And then once you've done that, it makes it very easy to be on the same page and pushing towards the same thing. But yeah, that's how we break it down.
Excellent. I'm dying to jump in and share an observation on the pattern there. But first, I want to kind of understand, Erin, how you're set up at Disney within partnerships. Who do you report up into internally?
Yeah, I see you saved the simplest for last. So as those of you watching may imagine, Disney's a pretty large and matrixed and multifaceted organization. So we have a lot of stakeholders that with their functions will sit horizontally across a function or vertically within a function, or maybe oversee the P&L of a specific product versus a specific market or whatever the case is. And so regardless of the types of partnerships that we look to pursue and whatever my team's goals are, inevitably there's a lot of crossover with other teams. And over the past few years that I've been here, we've kind of cultivated this sort of miniature solar system of internal teams that sort of orbit around each other and are working in tandem as we navigate a lot of this opportunity and business development work. And for us, there's a few divisions in the company. I won't name them all, but we have like an enterprise partnerships team, for example, that handles deals like Verizon and that carrier deal where they're offering Disney Plus and the Disney bundle to existing Verizon subscribers. That's kind of a dual acquisition hook for Verizon as a carrier. There's business development teams who formerly help with a lot of our actual distribution deals when it comes to where our content appears and where our apps are on what platforms, Roku, gaming consoles like Xbox and PlayStation, etc. So there's a lot of teams like that. Regional folks too, right? I don't know what the partner landscape looks like in Singapore or South Korea, but in partnering with those regional counterparts, we're able to identify some of those and collaborate on bringing them to surface. So long-winded way of saying a lot of folks across the Walt Disney Company end up having their hands in partnerships throughout their life stage, be it in the prospecting phase or vetting or making sure we don't have any conflicts of interest elsewhere in the company who might already be working with that vertical, all the way up to what Kate and James, I think, have described with actual execution, build, rolling out of that partnership, which definitely touches well beyond marketing.
So one key obvious theme across each of your experiences that, Kate talks about it being far-reaching, James talks about cross-functional teams, like individual departments having to collaborate, same thing with Erin. It's fascinating to me how it seems like you're left to your own resources and your own strategy to kind of make things happen. I think part of it, my observation as well, working with some other customers, is that it doesn't seem like this team is like firmly planted in many enterprises just yet. I think of traditional sales teams, traditional marketing teams, but Kate, you just described a very strong, empowered business development team or partnerships team sitting inside of marketing. Like most people think of marketing as demand gen, search spend, account-based marketing, and selling programs, events, and things like that. They're not thinking about these really complex and strategic business development deals. And so it's kind of like most organizations have to put it somewhere. And I guess it just depends on each individual organization on where that sits. But just curious to know, how mature are some of these programs? Are you guys managed to quotas, like bookings targets, revenue targets, churn metrics or expansion metrics? How is this managed internally within the teams that you sit?
I think no one has cracked this from anybody I've chatted to, and it's interesting. It feels like for something that is, people talk about partnerships like forever, but I think it hasn't. How would I say? It's still a kind of immature role or org within most companies that we deal with in terms of actually show us your impact and show us the repeatable playbook that helps you demonstrate that impact. I would say a lot of people, if they're being honest, still struggle with that. And a lot of it, I think, is org design. You get these often BD people working in this partnership role and they have no leverage. They go to a partner, it's like, oh, let's work together. It's like, cool, why? How can we do it? And it's like, oh, let's do some go-to-market together. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, we'll do a press release. It's like, okay, that won't do anything. And then I think in my experience, the marketing can be very beneficial to helping time box teams to get what you want. And so with the Canva example, we're actually able to turn around the Canva button integration into HubSpot extremely quickly. And the way we were able to do that was use marketing assets to essentially time-bound product teams, where we went internally to our product team. We said, there's this Canva button that we think could add a lot of value to customers. They saw it instantly, were like, yes, that would add a ton of value. And then we're like, oh, well, we have a marketing event coming up in 4 months. And I think if you could build it in time, we could possibly get Canva's founders to come to the event and we could launch it like a product. And that they agreed to that. And then that more or less, I don't know how many people in the audience have dealt with product times, but deadlines can definitely shift around a lot. There's nothing like a public event where, I mean, our founder was coming and speaking at it as well. Nobody wanted to miss that deadline. And so I think where BD teams are able to use leverage of marketing to time box, that's very helpful. And I think, if I was a CEO designing an org, I would actually put in the BD team core marketing resources and a product team that reported into that BD org as well, because it's tough enough to convince the partners to do something. It's then a nightmare to have to go back to your own company and also convince them to do it and corral resources and get it all online. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I would say it's an immature org in most companies.
I think what you've said, James, is spot on. I think regardless of where an organization decides to place the partnerships team, I think having that marketing lens is super important. And obviously the topic of the panel being around trust. If a team is entering into partnerships that doesn't have that sense check from a value alignment piece of yes, okay, this partnership could potentially tick a lot of business objectives through revenue and so forth. But if there's a value misalignment, then you can actually do a lot. You can actually eradicate a lot of trust. So I think regardless of where it sits, having that marketing lens or input into the scoping and filtering process is really essential.
Excellent. Any other advice to the audience about how to approach these types of partnerships, as well as any lessons learned or any pro tips that people might want to learn from?
I think admitting that there is a sales cycle to this, and Target, for example, which involved multiple teams, is it's not just my team who've been involved in it. Deals like that can sometimes take years to discuss and work through and get all parties happy. So patience is key, persistence is key. Not every partner you reach out to is going to see the same opportunity you do or place the same level of priority on it that you might. You might have different misaligned goals, to Kate's point. So I think heading into it with a lot of perseverance to overcome some of that is helpful. And I also think in these types of functions and roles, because of the ambiguity and the sort of matrixed way of working across functions, that's part of what makes it so difficult to place, right? You could justify various pros and cons to a million different org structures of where these teams sit, be it in marketing or BD or product or what have you. And I think regardless of where it does sit, the talent that is on the team benefits when they're both extroverted and introverted, or a bit of ambiverts. And so if someone is able to do the extroverted salesmanship, both externally with other brands and other companies to, court them and get them interested in the partnership, but then also sell it internally, that's huge. And that ability to charm and woo others is pretty crucial. But then so too is, at least in my experience, the introverted element, which is the very buttoned up business case behind some of these. And without the justification of how it's going to move, the top line P&L for the organization, or without demonstrating the potential scale that some of these have, I think they can also have a lot of difficulty getting off the ground. So really encourage folks to find personalities who can, both work a pivot table and work a room.
Very good insights. And how about you, James? What advice do you have for folks approaching these types of partnerships?
Yeah, I think one is how do you use marketing to make a deal happen versus just doing marketing to celebrate a deal that's happened. And so I think the idea of using marketing as leverage to time box product development it sounds small, but is actually huge. Like if you chat to anybody in product, even like people working in product feel like they can't tell their direct reports exactly what to do. So good luck to somebody from BD telling product what to do. But I think if you can use marketing assets to time box the windows when they can work on something, and to use them to like almost as a promise note, it's like, if you work on this, we will do XYZ marketing activities that they will find beneficial, rather than hoping they do the product and then doing the marketing, actually using it as leverage to ensure that product gets built and gets built in a timely way. I think it's pretty huge.
I think that point in particular is what makes B2B partnerships so different from advertising. Let's say if we were to compare it to like another channel, these types of partnerships are not coin operated. You're not putting in $1, getting a click back, right? You're talking about an integration in some cases, but there's a little bit of an investment up front, but there's an enduring nature to it. And it does need to be developed and nurtured to continue to grow, but there's an enduring return on this sort of partnerships that's very different from other channels. So I think that's a very accurate observation and advice to the audience. And then how about you, Kate? What would you say? What's your advice to the group?
Yeah, look, I totally agree with everything that James and Erin has said. I guess just to add something else, and probably related to another point I had around just the internal alignment with all of the key stakeholders, to really understand the partnership space and what it is that the partnerships team are trying to achieve. You know, think of sales teams. They're out in the wild day in, day out, talking to a wide-ranging amount of companies. And I think that if they've got that full visibility on what an ecosystem partnership can look like, then they can really drive a lot of really great inbound opportunities as well. So there's a lot of internal kind of education and so forth that's required as well. And I think just to echo something that Erin said, you know, partnerships is a long game. They can take months, years, even to eventuate and to really optimize. So it's not a set and forget. Have patience and make sure that you've got the resources that can really bring them to life.
Excellent. I think that's a very fine point to maybe end today's discussion. Kate, Erin, James, thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights with the group. Have a great day.